The Neil Diamond Musical, A Beautiful Noise, the uplifting true story, featuring all the songs you love from his Grammy Award-winning career. October 21st through 26th at Des Moines Civic Center. On sale at dmpa.org.
What is up? Welcome to the Beat Reporters. And this group of Beat Reporters is going to be hitting the road this weekend. I'm excited. I'm Jake Brend with Cyclone Fanatic and Iowa Everywhere, joined by Ben Hutchens of the Quad City Times and Rob Gray of Cyclone Fanatic and the Gazette out of Cedar Rapids. Gentlemen, how are we doing? Getting ready for Friday?
I guess this is as good of a time as ever to break out my Bill Belichick impersonation. We're on to Cincinnati.
That we are. Rob?
I got nothing. I got a lot of impersonations. Maybe they'll come up in future editions of the Beat Reporters.
Rob, did you go to Cincinnati in 2023?
I did not go. So this would be the maiden voyage at Nippert for me.
I hear it gets loud. 40,000 seat capacity, but I hear it gets pretty loud.
Yeah, the Godfather John Walters was telling me just the way it's built, they're right on top of you, almost over you. So it's going to be, even though it's not the biggest stadium, the way the fans, I guess, kind of go down, it sounds loud. So I guess we'll experience it for ourselves on Saturday. We are brought to you today courtesy of Kelderman Manufacturing. Kelderman handling manufacturing needs for trucks, for signs, literally does it all down there in Oskaloosa. He's a one-of-a-kind guy. It wouldn't shock me whatsoever if he was riding his motorcycle out to Cincinnati on Saturday. I guess I'll have to text him, see if he's going out there. But he is as diehard as it comes for the Cyclones. He's a true sicko. And those are the type of people that you want to give your business to. So if you have any manufacturing needs, be sure to hit up Kelderman Manufacturing. We got a few topics for you today. The obvious one comes from the injury report and the loss of Jontez Williams and Jeremiah Cooper for the season. We'll hit on that. We will talk Chase Sewell's breakout game, what that could mean for the Cyclone offense going forward. The swinging gate 2-point conversion in the kicking game continues to be a topic of discussion. And then we'll talk a little bit about Ben Bramer's trick play and maybe his opportunity as a emergency quarterback if ever needed down the road. I'm excited, and we'll start with Jontez Williams, Jeremiah Cooper. The impact can't be stated enough on losing two all Big 12 cornerbacks. What do you guys think about the Iowa State defense going forward without Cooper, without Williams?
Well, you got two potential future pros. You got two of the best big corners in the Big 12, and being lost mere days from each other with the same injury is just really bad luck. Harkens back to the linebackers. I know Williams and Bloom talked about that in their podcast for the Wednesday. I mean, just it's a brutal blow. I mean, we saw what it meant to have to play third and fourth string linebackers consistently last season. Now the Cyclones did find a way to win a lot of those games. It's going to be up to the professor, John Haycock, and Hank Boteed, who I think has proven himself. He develops corners really well. So that's another positive piece that when you bring in Quentin Taylor, we've seen Trey Bell be good in a relatively short amount of time being on Iowa State's campus. And you get, Coach Campbell said David Coffey, who's been on the injury report a couple of weeks, they were high on him and he could be back. And Benny Nagoye, he's got the body for it. There's a reason, that it made sense to move him to corner. And, I still think they've got a good amount of depth there and good safeties, especially now that some of the younger guys got some experience after the Cooper shift that can help them cover up. But I mean, there's no way to sugarcoat it. It's not a devastating loss, but it's a really bad blow that the Cyclones are going to have to adjust on multiple fronts on defensively to account for.
In the shock factor, Rob, you mentioned of last Beat Reporters midweek season, everything was fine and dandy in the secondary. And now, both of the NFL guys with NFL potential are done for the year. So that shock factor is certainly something that I was watching, at least on Saturday, without Jeremiah Cooper. And for what it's worth, I thought the secondary played pretty well. Of course, Williams was one of the guys who had one of the interceptions and returned it 45 yards. But Patton, I think, had the one at the goal line to kind of ice the game. And, it gives you some hope as somebody who watches this Cyclone secondary that things might be okay moving forward, even without those two leaders.
Yeah, the problem is Williams is a field tilter. There's very few guys at any level of football that are capable of nearly eliminating half the field. Not completely, but you almost never see Williams attacked downfield. If they throw at him, it's a short 6-yard out route. And the way Iowa State's defense works, even your best cornerback is going to allow that from time to time. But to have a corner that takes pretty much a third of the field away, and to get rid of that, it changes the defense for everyone. And that's where I think Iowa State fans are going to have to readjust their defensive expectations. That doesn't necessarily mean readjust your expectations as a whole, but this probably, hopefully I get old takes exposed, this probably won't be a top 20 unit nationally like it stands right now. It's probably going to fall a little bit further, and that's going to put more on the Cyclone offense to come through.
Yeah, and I think they're such sure-handed tacklers too. I mean, that's another thing that you don't always see that with good cover corners. John Tess is really good against the run. Cooper's proven that from the safety spot. So you mix that. I mean, I think the way Marcus Neal has played is hugely important. You mentioned Jameis and Patton. I think those guys step up some, and other guys are going to have to go around as defensive coordinator John Haycock said, somebody else has got to pick up the flag and run with it. And in this case, I guess it's a couple of flags. So we'll see how it goes. But you have seen those safeties progress, and Neal is really an emerging star. And I think Patton is very much in the same mold.
Yeah, I think the spearhead of this defense has to move to the safeties. Where in the past you can kind of lock down the outside and work inward. I think now it kind of reverses because, as you said, Rob, there are some players at safety who you feel pretty good about. And if they can kind of shoulder some of this burden in this John Haycock scheme, then you might be able to kind of hide, you could say, some of these younger guys who are going to be learning with trial by fire.
Yeah, and another thing that I'll add is I think Iowa State's corners, I think Iowa State's backup corners are better now than the starting corners, say, 6-7 years ago. I think to the early Matt Campbell era, when, yes, you've got Brian Peavy, who was really good at one of the corner spots, whoever else was on the opposite side of him was, no offense, still a Paul Rhodes corner and just getting picked on nonstop. So while you can't put a number on the impact of losing Cooper and Williams, you're going from maybe the best tandem of corners in the country, certainly the Big 12, to probably maybe an average to slightly above average group of corners. And that, again, it's what the defense is built around. That's why it hurts. That's why it's going to be hard to recover from.
Yeah, I think again, Poteet, his NFL pedigree, I think he's got these guys ready. I think there's a reason they were so high on Taylor and Coffey in the spring and beyond, and now Coach Campbell was had a high praise for Benny Nagoye. So we'll see. You're right, but there's no question there's going to be a drop off. There's potential, there's development, then there's proven on the field success, which both Cooper and Williams have loads of.
I guess
Darian Porter started out as on the offensive side of the ball, and he was a third-round pick in the NFL draft last year. John Tez Williams wasn't some monster recruit coming in here who everybody thought would turn into immediately a lockdown, a field tilter, as you said, Jake. So you're right. Iowa State does have a track record of development. Maybe we need to give those guys the benefit of the doubt.
Yeah, I guess to be the silver lining guy, they both can come back next year, which that probably wasn't going to be the case regardless. I know that does nothing for this year, because how many times are you going to be 5-0? It's the sixth time in school history, I think. So you want to take advantage of that when you have it, when you have Dom Orange up front, when you have Rocco Becht for sure on the other side. But if there's a slight silver lining, it certainly makes your outlook for the 2026 defense a lot stronger than maybe initially would have been.
No doubt.
But nobody wants to hear that. One guy who I'd guess will be here in 2026 and is starting his trajectory towards one of those really good Iowa State transfer receivers is Chase Sowell. Sowell breaks out on Saturday, 4 catches, 146 yards, and he looked like the receiver that I think the staff thought they were getting. I think the fan base thought that they were getting, and now it looks like they've got him. Well, what do you think this version of Chase Sowell could do for the Cyclone offense the rest of the way in 25?
The thing that impressed me about Sowell is the variety of ways he hurt a defense. I think of him, running down the sideline and getting a step on almost every deep ball he ran. And we were able to see him catch some balls along the sideline. We were able to see him high point a ball along the sideline. You think of like Higgins in that role. And then you think about the slant, where Iowa State threw him a slant and he takes off and runs, clear down the field. So there's a few different ways where Sowell can really hurt you. I view him as, not just a one-trick pony out there. Definitely the guy that Iowa State has been missing. And I know I've said this before. It's felt like Dom Overby has been, the next wide receiver one. He's the guy. And then Ed Skildson has had some moments where you think he's the next wide receiver one. And now Sowell's in that role. But maybe from what I saw Saturday, Sowell has kind of the goods to continue in this role, and we'll see if the consistency stays there. That's been the battle, but I think after the bye week, he was a little bit more integrated into this offense. We know all about the time he missed in the fall, getting ready to get acclimated to this new scheme, so maybe Sowell is the guy here to stay.
Yeah, can I tease a little something, gentlemen?
Please.
I'm working on a big feature on Chase Sowell. And I'm kind of torn whether I'm going to drop it for game day this week or hold to next week, because he was, along with Jordan Tyson, on Colorado's roster when Dion came in and cleaned house a few years back. Obviously, went to East Carolina, found some success there, and it's taking advantage of this opportunity at Iowa State. Again, as Ben alluded to, it's been a tougher road for him because of injuries which are undisclosed in the great Iowa State tradition, but battling through some things, but he got important catches once he started getting catches. They weren't flashy catches, they weren't long catches. I think he averaged like 8 yards per catch in his first 4, but we see that explosiveness. And interestingly, there was a guy I interviewed, David Boston, who works with him. In the Houston area, former star at Ohio State, won an incredible season, an all-pro season, I think in 2007, as the Arizona Cardinals had almost 1,700 receiving yards. And he said he's been working with Chase when Chase had a big growth spurt. I can divulge that his dad, who does professional instruction for high-level baseball type stuff, they thought he was going to play baseball. He was not that big, but he was really talented. And then he had a growth spurt, and football became the choice. And Boston said they'd been working a lot on that speed, and that was the first thing that was on display, I think, in those catches. Breakaway speed out of a slant. I mean, that's rare with his frame. It's kind of Jaden Higgins-esque, and he talked a little bit after the game about what it meant to be around him and Jalen Noel, of course, as well. And so I think another insight from Boston to go with it, when we talk about the importance of a Chase Sowell breakout game, Boston noted how it was pretty clear that with newer receivers or people that haven't done a whole lot, that they were going to lean on the tight ends because they had so many, but teams were starting to scheme against that. So they needed to be able to counter it. For Chase to have that kind of a big game, as Boston said, it's probably going to go back and forth now. Teams will adjust. Big plays in the receiving game. We've seen Eskelson have some. Dom's had a few. We've seen guys here and there have big catches. So it's going to be just, again, more options for Taylor Mauser to work with, more options for Rocco Beck to work with. And I'm excited about getting the story written. And like I said, I can't figure out if I want to run it this week, or it seems like a natural fit to run it Colorado week. But with the way the Cyclones are going, you got to make sure you write about someone quick sometimes.
Yeah.
Sowell was definitely Louis out there last Saturday. Maybe Coach Prime didn't think so in 2023, but Sowell's definitely Louis.
I think you make a really good point, Rob, when it comes to the balance of the tight ends and the wide receivers. Like there's still no doubt to me that Iowa State's tight ends are their biggest strength when it comes to the future NFL prospects of, for sure, Ben Bramer and probably Gabe Burkle as well. But you can only utilize the tight ends so much if they are number one on the game plan. That's just football 101. So going forward, to have the threat of a Chase Sewell, the downfield threat, and just Rocco being able to utilize that, it's going to make life so much easier for everybody. And then you get back to the point where you can throw a bunch of tight ends on the field, and it could be a run, it could be a pass, and that's where Taylor Mauser's offense is working at its absolute best. And to have Sewell, that threat of 150 yards in a game there, it goes without saying that it could be the Iowa State offense could take a step even further than last year, in my opinion.
Yeah, and I'll give one other little more sneak peek at whenever that story runs. Boston also told me that Sewell has earned everything. I mean, he did get faster with the growth spurt. Still was not all that fast. He has. You say you can't. Sometimes they say you can't coach talent, or you can't. Those attributes like speed. He's really helped coach that in him, and Sewell's been a really eager worker in that regard. I mean, from sled work, a lot of things. It just weighted runs to really build that strength and speed together. And when you talk about a hard road, I'm not even sure. I think the approach for Deion when he was hired was probably you're starting from scratch. Because again, he had some really good players on that roster that were essentially told to take a hike. But to go through that heartbreak when you finally get that chance, right? And then okay, what now? Then it's East Carolina, and then this opportunity opens up, goes through a little bit more adversity. But you don't often hear about people developing their speed per se that much. When again, he looks very fast out there, particularly for his size. That really struck me about our conversation too, and about what it says about his makeup, as a player and a person.
Yeah, it's also, I think, a fitting culture fit. Not to throw around that buzzword all the time, but who else on this Iowa State roster is some 5-star sure hit talent? There's nobody. Rocco Becht was passed over by his dad's own alma mater. Dom Orange, he's a surefire, probably second-day NFL draft pick. He didn't have a ton of offers coming out of high school. Jontez Williams, Jeremiah, the list goes on and on and on. And to be a guy who got passed over, who got essentially just kicked off the team for not being good enough in Deion Sanders' eyes, that fits really well into what Matt Campbell has built and preaches pretty much 24/7. We'll move on. I want to give a shout out to our friends at Farm Story Meats. Their mission is so simple. They want to make it easy for you to know exactly where your meat comes from and who raised it. Pretty much everything that they do is for the animals. It's for the consumers. And they make it all safe. And when you support Farm Story Meats, it means that you are supporting local farmers that are local Cyclones as well. They are deeply, deeply involved in the Iowa State community as proud alums. And one of the founders, Ray, was even Cy back in the day. So you know that when you're supporting Farm Story Meats, you are getting the best quality of meat, you're getting safe meat, and you are supporting good people. You can check out their meat shop at farmstorymeats.com. Again, farmstorymeats.com. So the kicking game is, I will still say just to be determined. I don't think we learned a ton about the kicking game on Saturday. We learned that Campbell and Mauser probably like to have fun with the media and with the fan base by running a swinging gate on the first touchdown of the game for the 2-point conversion. What do you think having that on tape does for the team? Does it affect Chase Smith's confidence or anything like that? Well, just take me through your thoughts, guys.
Interestingly, Campbell told us in the postgame he made that decision to kind of build Chase Smith's confidence, to get him a chance to settle in the game, which, I'd imagine would probably help. I think kicking in a 6-0 game in the first quarter against Arizona under the lights in a whiteout is a lot different situation than when Chase Smith's been called on in the past in kind of blowouts against South Dakota and things of those nature. So I think it probably worked. We have to say it worked, right? Chase Smith went perfect the rest of the game. He's now 8 for 8 on extra points and 1 for 1 from a 34-yard field goal, guys. I mean, Chase Smith, he's been perfect. They've looked good. You know, he's not scraping the crossbar by any means. So I think you have to be somewhat impressed with Chase Smith. But yes, Jake, the big question does remain. We never got to see that range truly tested because of how good Iowa State was, you know, around midfield and in the red zone.
Yeah, and I think that's going to happen. There are going to be situations where, look, you can go for it on fourth down all you want, but if the game's on the line, you know, you could kick a 43-yard field goal to win it on, or go for it on 4th and 6 with 11 seconds left and 1 timeout, hypothetically. At some point, you got to trust the guy to go and do it. And, you know, Campbell has said he's been consistent. Now, I don't know if that means just consistent on extra points and short kicks, or whether they have tested him a whole lot on deeper kicks. But clearly, again, he kicked in the low 40s in high school. You know, they build a lot of strength immediately once somebody hits campus in Ames, and I'm sure they worked him out from deeper. So, you know, he's going to get his opportunity. I mean, Kyle Conradi, as Campbell said Tuesday, has fallen into that quote-unquote week-to-week category. So who knows when he's available. And he did, of course, say it's not long-term, so you wouldn't think several weeks. But, you know, I'm with Ben, though. I was impressed with the way he looked, you know. And I agree with Campbell, too. I mean, take an opportunity to catch a team on its heels and throw an old-school play at them in a situation where why would they go for 2 now, right? And if you're Chase Smith, it probably gives you a little bit of joy. You watch him, it's like, hey, all right, next one I'll go out. You know what I mean? I can see, excuse me, that having a psychological benefit. But I could also see it be the other way too. Coach, why aren't you throwing me out there? But it sounded like it was well thought out and well conceived and well executed.
And it sounded like it was all part of the plan. It was planned. Like Campbell told Smith before that moment, hey, don't worry about the first touchdown. We're doing something special on this. Yeah. And Conradi, I'll just add real quick, Jake. I was interested to see how Conradi looked. One of the things I noticed as I kind of made my post-game or my pre-game lap around the field is Conradi was moving around pretty well, I thought. I'm no, judge of hip injuries, but he had shorts on, moving around, kind of throwing the ball. He looked okay. He looked like somebody who, could be back.
Yeah, and that's a good sign as well, that he's not in a scooter. He's not like It just kind of looked like he was walking around being one of the guys. The other thing that I'll add with the 2-point conversion is it just makes future opponents, it makes their week of prep a little more annoying. It adds one extra thing that you have to prepare. Oh my gosh, they're probably not going to do it, but they might go for 2 in the first quarter or the second quarter, and they might run this swinging gate. And out of the swinging gate, they're probably going to have different variations of it, where maybe Burkle tosses it to somebody else who goes the other way, and it just makes the opposing coaching staff's life a little more annoying. And when you factor in the Bramer to Eskelson pass, which we'll get into in a second, all of the different pop passes, what Matt Campbell and Taylor Mauser have done so far is probably make opposing staffs paranoid when you put that much on tape and know that they could use it at any moment. They could use it in big moments. They won the Utah game last year with a Carson Hansen to Gabe Burkle pass. So it's got to be tough as an opposing head coach or an opposing defensive coordinator to know that's on the radar.
Well, yeah, thinking out loud here, that would slow me down as somebody who, if Iowa State's shown a propensity to have all of these exotic things, maybe the pass rush on a kickoff or a punt or a field goal is slowed down a little bit. I think that could be one added advantage of putting some of this crazy stuff on tape.
No doubt, and think about Mauser telling us the last time he was available to the media broadly how we watch those other games too. How about that Alabama pass to deal with Caden Proctor? Imagine James Neal, former basketball star, 330 pounds or whatever, rambling down the sideline doing something there. And we've seen him, or we saw Jalen Travis it put in as kind of like tight end. I mean, as Mauser said, there aren't many things he's not willing to try. And I think that's another thing that should give, opposing defensive coordinator some pause as well.
What'd you guys think of that play call on the only time Iowa State got stopped in a 3rd and short situation was when they kind of faked the Rocco Beck quarterback sneak. I mean, I like the theory. I like the idea of doing something different out of there. We saw, it worked for the Philadelphia Eagles on Sunday. But that was the only time they got stopped in 3rd and short, was experimenting a little bit, changing it up, doing something different.
Well, so I got to talk about this because I said on Cyclone Fanatic pregame last week, like I wouldn't mind seeing maybe an end around, whether it's with Xavier Townsend or Aiden Flora. And I had one of my old buddies, Levi Stevenson. He's a friend of the program, works for Wide Right 90 Light. He just texted me. He's like, hey, man, I don't think it'd be very smart to do an end around. The way Arizona plays defense with reckless abandon, it's high risk, high reward. And sure enough, they run it. Townsend fumbles, near disaster. And I text him like, yeah, maybe the end around wasn't the smart call. But then we saw it come around with Bramer in a bit of a different sense. But I think that's also a key thing to point out. These risky trick plays, the gimmick plays, if you will, they're not always going to work out. And sometimes they might look stupid. They might, if the risk doesn't pay off, it could be catastrophic. And I think that's just another reason why it's been so impressive how Taylor Mauser has almost always called these at the perfect time with near perfect execution. That it's just not something that you see every day. I know last year was it the double reverse at Utah it was the 1 or 2 yard line, ended up almost being like an interception. That was a bad play call, but yeah. I feel like Mauser's batting 90% on these things.
Keep in mind also that sometimes you throw in that seemingly very odd play in order to ensure you continue to have the level of success they're having on short area situation with sneaks and plunges here and there.
Yes.
I mean, so you say, okay, the downside is the play did not succeed at all. The upside is the team's going to look at that tape and say, you know what, they might try this. And you know what, if the defense is misaligned at all, that might be a huge big play. So I think that's factored in as well. I think that's one of the reasons why sometimes a play that's quote unquote a failure, isn't necessarily a failure in the grand scheme of things. It is in the moment, and we all know how important the moments are. But I'm sure that's also on his radar too when he tries some of these different things.
That helps Rocco Beck to get his electric stat line of 9 rushes for 10 yards and 3 touchdowns.
I also think, like from a linebacker, from a safety perspective, if you think of this like golf, when you are in your backswing, if you have one negative thought, you're going to slice it, you're going to shank it, you're going to top it. If you're a safety and you just have one thought of hesitation when it's a big moment, when it's 3rd and 1 and you're going up and you're expecting, oh, they might run the pop pass here, and no, they actually just run the ball straight up and you get leveled by a tight end. The more you can get the opposing team to think and to hesitate, it's just going to give you more and more advantages when the moment's at its best. And that's something that the staff and the players know way more than we can, because we get just as surprised by it when it happens on our screen. I can't even imagine what it's like being on the field and you've maybe prepared for it, you maybe haven't.
Absolutely.
Well, we spent a lot of time on trick plays, but we didn't really talk about the Bramer to Eskelson one a ton, and that's what we're going to do now. Just a diabolical play call. End around to Ben Bramer. Hits Eskelson on the post route, who was actually the second option. the first read was supposed to be Chase Sowell on the out route, and the fact that Bramer is given the trust to not just, hey, if the first read's there, just throw it away, but to have the trust to throw it downfield, that's unbelievable to me, and it is, I think, diabolical by Taylor Mauser is the word I want to use.
Yeah, Bramer said he's thrown 3 touchdowns in high school. So it's not the first time he's thrown, I guess, a near touchdown. Matt Campbell did make the joke that Iowa State's the best team in the nation at getting tackled at the 1. Another play right there. But yeah, it's just another element of what Benjamin Bramer can do. I thought it was kind of funny. Matt said, hey, he can play, what do you say, tight end, receiver, running back?
Matt,
Maybe something like that.
Maybe corner?
Get him out there some reps in the corner. They might need him. I always said I would love to see a 6'6" running back. That sounds like a lot of fun to watch.
That pass, I found it interesting that Bramer said it was not a good throw because it looked like a pretty good spiral. Clearly a little bit underthrown, I suppose, but you think second read again, like you said, it looked like a pretty good ball to me. I mean, there's a guy, as Coach Campbell told us, of course, son of a head football coach, has been steeped in football his whole life. That allows him to be that much more versatile and trusted, again, in those situations. And, and just as not an aside, but a corollary on this one, how huge has it been that he's stayed healthy? I mean, we can talk about, lament the corners, what's happened in recent days, in the / a week, but he's so valuable to this team in so many ways. I think Campbell threw in the fact that may be one of his best blocking games too. So, I mean, it all ties in, Sowell's emergence. Townsend, let's not forget, emerged with the career high 92 yards, I think the week before. This synergy with this offense, and we're going to see, I mean, Cincinnati is pretty much put up points on everybody. Now, I know Kansas's defense has not really ever stopped anybody, but the 600-plus yards, I mean, Brendan Sorsby, the quarterback, just brilliant with his arm and legs. Cincinnati's going to put up points. I would say with its variety of weapons on offense, I think this is – you mentioned diabolical. This could be a diabolical Taylor Mauser game because I'd imagine he's going to try a lot of stuff because he's got a lot of options to play with.
It always felt like that was going to be the challenge, Rob. Iowa State has a difficult first 4 games of the season. We talked about the Ireland trip, the trip to Jonesboro, Iowa. How long is it going to take for this offense to get up to speed with all the new pieces? And the fact that Iowa State managed to get through that first stretch undefeated, get to a bye week, you're right, Rob. It feels like this synergy is starting to come together a little bit.
I also think, you look at the difference between what we expected out of this first 4 game, or out of the next 4 games from the rest of the schedule. Yes, a little bit has changed about the opponents, but I think now you think higher of Cincinnati, lower of Colorado, and it's kind of evened out. And I think this 3-game stretch that the Cyclones are in the midst of is something that I'm sure most fans expected 3-0 out of, and I'm sure if you were to punch the numbers, 2-1 is probably the most likely. They're already a third of the way through it with a 1-0 start. If they make it a 2-0 start, then I would say 3 is probably pretty likely, and that's what makes this game on Saturday so massive. And it's really going to call on Rocco Becht to have his A game, like he has had pretty much all of this year. I just think Cincinnati's going to be able to score points, whether it's 30 points, 35 points. I think Rocco is going to have to match that and maybe go win a shootout.
No question. And as Ben said, I mean, it's they are coming out of, that first 4, kind of where they needed to be, and then showed what they did against Arizona. So, I just think that this is going to be one of those games where Rocco is going to, in the run game, it's interesting because Cincinnati they don't have a lot of options how they can play defensively. Dante Corleone was questionable last week. They said he was a game-time decision. First team All Big 12 defensive interior lineman, real great player. If he's back, things change. But their back end's been porous, to say the least. And I think you can run on them a little bit. I think they're, 31st or something against the run, so almost a top 30 team defense against the run the Cyclones will face, but through the air they've been one of the worst nationally. So, yeah, a lot's going to fall on Rocco. And I know I always bring it up, but Taylor Mauser said when it's easy for Rocco, he doesn't do well. When they put a lot on his plate, that's when he shines. And this is going to be, I think, a prime opportunity like that, like you said.
And the latest on Corleone, I watched Scott Satterfield's press conferences. He said he's trending in the right direction to play on Saturday, but it does still sound like a truly questionable. And if I had to guess, that's probably what we'd see Corleone listed tonight when the Big 12 injury report comes out.
Yeah.
Yeah, it just depends, I guess, which school of injury reports Scott Satterfield went to. Did he go to the Matt Campbell? Did he go to the TJ Otzelberger? Those are two different schools where one, it most likely doesn't matter what you hear, and the other, like TJ, I feel like has typically been pretty straightforward unless he truly doesn't know himself, which we've seen in a couple different instances in the last couple years. I guess one last thing before we go. We talk about Rocco needing to be on his A game. I was talking to Ben Bramer on Tuesday about, I know Rocco's always been accurate, and I know he's been more accurate this year, but can you take me through how he's even maybe been more accurate? And what he said is the precision has been even better. Like, he's always going to be on target, but if you picture a target this big, that you could hit the top right, you could hit the top left, and it's still on target. Now he's hitting bullseyes. And that's what I've noticed this year. The amount of perfect deep balls, the amount of perfect seam routes that Rocco has thrown, it is pretty unbelievable. And that's why I think he's playing at such a high level, even compared to last year, where the deep route to Sewell that got to the one was a great throw. The one where Rocco was standing on his own 10 and hit him down the sideline was maybe even a better throw. And it's one of those where you can't even place it in a more perfect spot. And I think that's a massive key for Iowa State is the receivers to catch those, because there's also been a couple perfectly thrown balls that have not been brought down by Iowa State receivers, and that could be a massive key in the game on Saturday.
I'm sure Bramer would have told you, Jake, that Rocco's first interception was on him. Like that was one that went off the hands and into the face mask of Bramer. And the second one, I don't know. What were your guys' thoughts on that second interception? Was it a matter of trying to keep that streak alive?
I'm guessing it was probably just chasing the streak.
Yeah.
I'm guessing too. Yeah.
Either that or a slight miscommunication, because Bramer was kind of fading out of bounds a little bit. I'm guessing he thought that Rocco was just going to throw the ball away, so maybe a slight miscommunication. But I think overall, if that's a 7-7 game in the fourth quarter or 20-20 game in the fourth quarter, I don't think Rocco's throwing that. I'm guessing that was a little bit of a streak chaser right there.
Yeah, for sure.
And when you're up 3 scores, maybe you get a little bit of a license to do that.
Yes.
No doubt. And I mean, I think you make a really good point, Jake, in that a good quarterback throws catchable balls all the time, right? You give him a chance. Always give your receiver a chance to make the play. A great quarterback not only throws a catchable ball, but puts it in the best possible spot for that receiver to turn or running back to turn and get yards after the catch. And that's what we're seeing. Even the slant to Sewell was so perfectly delivered, he could hit the speed, turn on the jets immediately. You have to go up a little bit on that. If you have to, but it's right in his pocket, right in the catching pocket. I mean, that's a really good, I guess, I don't want to say clarifying point, to go from, hey, my guy's giving me a chance to catch the ball every time, to, no, he's putting me and everyone else in the best position to make plays after the catch. That's a big upgrade over just, again, from good to great.
Awesome, gentlemen. Well, we'll see you Friday morning for the road trip to Cincinnati. We'll probably try some Skyline chili Friday night. That's about all I have in store right now, other than covering the game itself. Well, do you guys have any bucket list items to do out in Cincinnati?
I might try to get my hands on a local bourbon, maybe just across the border. Maybe we should go across to Covington, Kentucky, make a little pit stop, make it a 2-state trip. I don't know, just throwing some stuff out there.
Jake, I can't say I'm with you on the Skyline chili. You might be on your own on that one, man. That doesn't sound too good.
See, I don't think it sounds too good either, but I got to try it for myself before I give an opinion on it.
Maybe you're right. Maybe we should, win in Rome, win in Cincinnati.
Yep.
If not, I'm sure there's a McDonald's or something that we can hit up. No, I'm kidding. I know McDonald's ain't going through farm story meats, so I'm not eating McDonald's. We'll have a fun time out in Cincinnati though, and we'll all have great coverage at our respective publications at Cyclone Fanatic, the Quad City Times, Cedar Rapids Gazette, and be sure to check out all of our work there on Saturday. And for now, this has been the Beat Reporters in the Northwest Bank Studios.